Hello. For welcome to yet another talk that we've organized for Game Dunk 2023. Um, yeah, for our 2:30 talk, we are joined by Maria Mison. And yeah, Maria is a queer piece of sunshine from the Philippines with a particular adoration for lyrical, ritual, and short, emotionally hefty games. They've done layout and guest writing for several international game projects and best known for stuff like Archangel, Dating Simulator, and I Eat Mantras for breakfast. Should I shout that? It's written in all caps. Do I need to shout that?
Up to you.
Maria also has professional arts therapeutic background, theater, dance, and somatic work, and loves cross-stitching games with other art scenes. Hey, works really well with crossing streams today, right? Encouraging
Yeah.
the glorious labor of being an artist or simply being deeply known. So yeah, take it away, Maria.
Oh my God. Hi, everybody. I can't see the chat, but I'm gonna trust that the chat shall be translated to me. So anyway, hi. Okay, so I'm an artist, based on Aaron's intro, and I feel like it's okay. So in a game jam, we're making games, and then sometimes we get stuck in making the game. So what's worked for me is when we're personally invested into wanting to see the game exist. And the thing is, when we want to be personally invested with something, it kind of means that we have to be in tune with what we want slash what we need. And sometimes that's like a big question of like, oh my God. And then sometimes it's like an overwhelming question. So I'd like paring it down to like just sitting with myself and maybe like breathing in and breathing out and being like, okay, what gameplay do I really like? What media do I really like? Like, what moment? Like, get really specific and get really nuanced with. There was this specific thing, and it gave me so much, like, joy or, like, excitement that, oh my god, like, I wanna play some more because I did that thing. And the thing is, that little spark of like, oh, this is drawing me to me, that's kind of what you grab into or what you like bite like a dog. It's like like that thing. You bite into that thing and then allow yourself to follow that thing. Because when we follow those urges, those truthful things that reflect us, they kind of help mirror us slash mirror our own process back to us. So rather than feeling like you're inventing everything, it's almost like the book already exists, you're just opening it. Or like the work already exists within you, you're full of stories, you're full of creativity. You're just looking for the switch or you're looking for that tag and you're like, "Oh, this is the tag." And then you know those shirts and there's like a one string and then when you pull at it, everything comes undone. So you're like looking for that door. And when you hit it or you snag it, you keep pulling and then the process does itself. So that's kind of like my pitch for everybody in terms of like if you find that really that entry point that just feels really good and then you just keep leaning into it, I feel like the process is much easier and in a way benefits us more because it's attuned to what you need. Like there's less backtracking of, oh, this is not it, this is not it, this is not it, because you're actually very mindful with where to start. Yeah. So so how do you go about that? So again, it's really just sitting and being like, huh, what am I called to? Or what moments do I want to emulate? Or even what vibe, like what Aaron was saying a while ago, of what vibe do I want to sit with right now? Or like, so sometimes it could be just a color, it could just be a location, it could just be a character, it could be a sort of connection that you want to do with. So, for example, our prompts are crossing streams, Uno card, secret handshake, surrealist systems, language barriers, surrealist economic systems. So, with crossing streams, actually, that's an art therapy practice. When people are going through transitions, they do two pages, two papers. Okay, let's pretend these are two papers. And then you kind of like draw one stage and the second stage. So, for example, you're drawing a snake that's going from spring to winter. And then what kind of support and boundaries the snake needs in that transition. The snake being the river, or maybe the stream is time, like it's crossing through time, because that's when you have two panels, it kind of evokes like a comic strip that passes through time. So I feel like that being the central theme always kind of evokes transitions, but at the same time, you can also uh, transition through space, not time. So maybe you could think about change. What you as like the one crossing, not necessarily like I know that you're not the character or the work, but when you cross anything, what is evoked out of you? Is it the choice? Is it the place? Is it the time? Is it the readiness? Is it the um do I need to have this amount of food to cross? Like when you think about the way you traverse things, uh what are the things that you always think of? So for me, I feel like I'm always this is canon Maria. I'm always drawn to food. I always have a lot of RPG scenes that involve eating and food. So when I think about crossing streams, I think about like getting ready for a camp. Like, oh, let me like bring stuff and then go to the next thing, almost like traveling. So I feel like um just being attuned to what crossing or passing over. So a lot of people also like those different dimension stuff. So when you're thinking of the crossing, like what are you crossing? Why was there a delineation? That's kind of like a good way to think about it. So another thing, so since Aaron also mentioned about it, I do a lot of work where I translate one body of work I have in a different genre into games because I like games because they're more playful, they're more I feel like a lot of art forms are like you need to be trained so much to even participate in it. Like you have to be a trained theater actor to game, and then it's like in LARP or in RPG. No, you don't have to be trained to participate. So I just really like that. So sometimes I would invite somatic practices. So those are like dance, feelingy stuff into my lyric games. So, for example, in Forgetting Your Touch, I gamed the whole you touch the other players your part of your body where the yes is, where the no is. So it was like gaming consent. But also the stories of your body. So I was transversing dance into or movement therapy into games. But also like gaming how not necessarily gaming, I think playing with what facilitation looks like. Because I feel like when I know that there's a debate sometimes of reading as play, and I really feel that reading is play. So sometimes there are games, especially when they're like emotionally hefty, just imagining them is already play. Especially if you feel like you cannot. So, for example, that game that I just said, maybe some people will never play it, and that's fine. I feel like the reason why people don't like gaming their feels is they also want to be responsible with the players. But that's why I tend to write very ritually slash high, not really high fantasy, more surreal liminal games, because they're almost like dares of like, oh, you're not gonna play this. Oh no, you're not. This is not. You're not gonna. I eat mantras for breakfast is literally you can't eat the game, and the game is literally saying to eat the mantra. So it's like there's a I like I just want to give people an excuse of yes, games are supposed to be playable, but at the same time just imagining playing it is already play. So sometimes you can let go of things being so doable. Also, because sometimes emotions are so fiddly that they don't have a logical resolve. Like, you can't, not everything is like a Bond's character thing that has like a clear resolution and mechanic. And if you're making games that are more journally, or they're more two player, or they're more, how do I say this? They're more Fluxus poetry, so they're like instructionals rather than story gamey. So they're very Yoko Ono stuff. It's okay to not kind of be so married to what people expect for like a role playing game. That's still a game. It's just a weird. I won't call it weird. it's just a different way to approach things, and there is a crowd for it if people like those kinds of stuff. It's another way to think about it is that if you write a more traditional game, that could be like your flavor text. That could be your impetus. Almost like you know how those in those lore books you first have flavor text or like a bit of narrative before you get into the thing. So like and grimoires have like these invocations before you get into the spell. So it's very much that. So sometimes if you're having a hard time making mechanics out of the feelings or the story you're trying to say, just be vague. Just be vague. Like you don't need to hit it. And then as long as you feel like you put it down on paper, and then you could ruminate and be like, "Oh, okay, now I know how to make it more mechanical or how I'm going to make a play loop out of this." So you don't need to rush. Sometimes it even feels so complete on the poetic level that you don't need to do the rest. Like it's up to you. I mean, yeah, unless if it's like a commission or something, but this is a jam, so whatever feels right for you, and if you feel like that is what you're going for, that would be what would be best. Yeah. Other themes that come up for me. By the way, I want to leave some time for the chat in case people have reactions in terms of like, oh, this made me think of blah, or they're curious about something. Feel free to just chat and interrupt me. But I will just go through the other prompts. So it is Uno cards as a mechanic. So Uno makes me think of honestly like a little bit of gambling. So cuz it's very much this but for kids, right? So I feel like it has that casino energy, at least for me. So I feel like so that's also like another trick for like trying to start with any kind of creative work. Just see how you react to the impetus. So for example, not everybody's gonna think casino, but I thought of casino. So uh it's like the easiest ingredient in my backpack, and it's the nearest one. So it's also the one that I have most leverage with. Yeah. So I feel like uh when I unpack why wait, let me just navigate that. When I start with an honest reaction and then unfurl it, it becomes more sincere. Yeah. So I know that some people are like, why only do the familiar? Why do the blah? It's more of like what's your first sincere reaction rather than trying to intellectualize your reaction. Yeah. And then you're like exploring your reaction. So that's what I'm trying to say. You're not trying to. I know that some people love craft and they're building like a craft version of art. Like there's a skill set and then you always do it like that. But I always come from a perspective of your life. You are art. You yourself, the way you live life, is already a process. So the way you react to prompts is already like a full reaction. And there's no invalidity of like, oh, I need to workshop my reaction or something. It's more of like you want to unfurl it, but it's not lacking. You know what I mean? So there's no um I feel like we kill a lot of ideas in the early stage because we want it to grow up too fast. And the thing is, no, but a kid's already perfect as a kid, right? So it's almost like meeting the genesis of the idea as a genesis and then just staying there rather than pushing it out. Yeah. So it's kind of like I know it's like a lot of. I know this is more of like a lot of like metaphorical ways of thinking about it, but I feel like when your perspective of ushering the thing into creation is aligned, things are just easier. So I feel like it's more of that shift that we wanted to. Yeah. So anyway, the next one is secret handshake. It makes me think about how you have secret handshakes with your best friends and how it's like an intimate language and how it's like a secret language. So it makes me think about secrets. makes me think about like also the body because it's silent, right? And it also makes me think of spies and espionage. And makes me think about like what you leave behind when you're crossing over. So you know how like, hey, can you do this? And then I'm gonna leave. Yeah. So for example, so if I was to do this game jam, I would jump with crossing streams and I'd go with secret handshake of like, you do that. Like my one last secret before I go. And then I'm really drawn to locations, so it's almost like where have I been and then where am I going? And then which connection do I have to leave behind? So it's almost, oh, this is fun. I guess it's about saying goodbye to old friends. Yeah, like when you know how you know those friend breakups that are hard. Yeah, sorry, this is like the stuff that I like in my games. But it's like those and then you need to say goodbye but also see you again later. But it's almost just like saying like it's almost like throwing a good birthday party for like a new lease in life. Like a new era. Like there's a new era and then you just bless each other with like a new secret handshake or like the last time you'll do the handshake. Yeah. Ooh, so I guess I'm doing a demo of like how I do my process. But anyway, serious economic systems. What this makes me think about is how sometimes we don't understand the economy and how it doesn't make sense. So it makes me think about how language is useless sometimes. So yeah, it makes me think about how um it makes me think about how it's almost like I want to game this as not necessarily the enemy but as the backdrop of the leaving. So it's almost like we don't understand why things have changed, but now you know how like people need to move because of money or because of like they've been reassigned somewhere. So I feel like that's how I would include that prompt. It's more of like so I feel I am drawn to the vagueness of economic systems of the I feel sometimes I feel like these econ people are just making stuff up. So I feel like that would be the theme of how I would approach it. So this is what I mean about like if you can approach things in a very like literally just put it in front of you and then just react to it and then just allow it to keep unpacking almost like a snake and it's like taking off its shirt and the shirt is the game, so it's almost like let's unpeel it but the game's complete, like it's there, just you're just being patient with taking it off rather than building something. So I don't know, I like that more as a way of thinking about things. And then language barriers is probably I'm drawn to how Twitter does the thing where there was a time when there was like a limit on characters and then limit of tweets you could read. And people were reposting that poem of, those like you can only say 54 words in a day. And then the person chose to say I love you like repeatedly to somebody. And people were just remixing that poem into like I can only read this much tweets in a day. So I was like, wow, it's such a cool like language barrier with. So the language barrier I think of is tweet limitations or like a limitation in words. So I feel like when you're distant with a friend, they're busy and they lack time and then have space apart and then there's a language barrier, but it's more about just like we don't have enough spoons to communicate. So you do hand signs. Or you do like these little things where you keep an object that reminds you of your friend. Or you tell them that, oh, I thought about you, but your time and space like don't sync up, like waves not syncing up. So that's like so when I think of the imagery, that also influences the layout. So I'm thinking about like the text boxes not matching, right? They're not. You know how the kerning is off a little bit and it pisses you off. So I feel like that's how I feel about that kind of friend drift, right? So and I feel like these prompts totally work together. I feel like it's only the Uno cards that I don't like. I'm not vibing with. Yeah. So that would be the theme of my game about like telling a story of uh like new languages I invent with a friend who becomes a different kind of friend after. And then maybe I would do. I like trios. So if this is like, because you know how in one act plays there's actually three scenes. So and then we always tend to like there's a sense of completion in threes, like a tripod or like a shape. So if I do like okay, so you leave a friend, you redefine a relationship, and then you create a new language. And I feel like I like giving closure to my games, and I tend to be very specific. So maybe I would do an end card of um re-meeting in a different point of life where they become like a different energy. So maybe they have a kid and then you become a mentor energy, or another one might be you become colleagues and then you've never been colleagues, or maybe lovers. I don't know. Oh my god. Okay, wait, I'm at a game. Okay, wait. So anyway, I heard audio in case somebody has a thing. I just want to be mindful. Anyway, um so that's how I kind of go through the process of what's evoked out of me, and then I just create a structure around that. And then since I'm drawn to the layout kerning and locations, maybe I would do scenes. That would be cards, and then I would do the emotional prompts. And it's catharsis for me in a way because it's like an honest reaction for me of like, oh, it's hard to fray friendships with like the digital landscapes changing or just, life. So, yeah, so that's how I tend to do things. Wait, I want to give space for questions in case anybody. So I'm like
Yeah. I'm
toss.
I'm bringing questions to you.
Okay, wait. All right. Go ahead, Aaron, if you have any.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So Logan asks in the chat. You spoke earlier about sitting with your own needs as an inspiration for play. So especially
Yeah.
with ritual games, what have you learned about yourself through designing based on your own needs?
Uh, Honestly, a lot. A lot. I feel like I think one of the most powerful things that I've learned is that uh what is personal is also universal. And the thing is the vulnerability and courage to really, because the only reason why we don't meet these needs when we repress them is we're kind of scared to love ourselves. Love ourselves, or kind of just see that part of ourselves. So I feel like even if the themes I've uncovered is like multifaceted, it's always there's this thrum of willingness to meet myself, and that tends to resonate with other people because they also want somebody to come with them, to meet with them. And then the story tends to match up with their story of like, oh yeah, I lost a friend too, or oh yeah, there's um someone I don't talk whose name I don't like anymore because that's one of my games. So it's very that's what I've learned through the process of thinking about myself before making the game, or even any kind of creative work, because I also work like this even in my other fields. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
It's more sustainable too. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I have another question from. I'm not sure who this is. I assume it's so it's from Quarganism. So the question
Mhm.
was, have you ever found an idea that did not transform readily into a game, right? And can you tell us about like when a transformation surprised you?
Ooh, oh, surprise. Okay, so that's two questions. I'm gonna just write surprise so that I don't
Oh,
get
it's petty.
distracted.
Quark is petty.
Oh, it's funny. Okay, I think the first one where it didn't become an idea, you know how like apples, there's a certain kind of ripeness before you could eat it. So the reason why I do a lot of nature metaphors is because even the artistic process, I know that it sounds so amorphous, but it's part of nature. And if you look at nature, it has cycles. And if you have a attunement to the cycles, you could just be like, oh, okay, the snake is ready to shed its skin. So when you say the whole, I have an idea, but it's not ripe yet. What it evokes out of me is like an apple. It's there, and you're like, I'm gonna pick that. It's so fat and juicy, but it's not red yet, right? So it's almost like, wait for you. There's that kind of feeling about it. So sometimes I would have ideas. Like one time I had an idea about a house game, about people talking about scenes in specific locations and well, so for example, the kitchen is about nourishment. Oh, I keep talking about food. Anyway, nourishment and like what people are cooking, like what we cooking together. And it took me a while to uh get that because I knew I wanted to talk about houses, but it took me probably a week to be like, oh, okay, I get it. I wanna make it like Sims and go through each room rather than the rooms are characters. So it took me a while to just reorient it in my brain. But I feel like it's the whole apple metaphor of also waiting for it to ripen, to um let it fall naturally. So it's very like it's almost like listening into the process rather than because I don't need to build the apple. It's there. So it's more like positioning yourself to the best way to respond to it.
Right.
Yeah. Surprised? What was I most surprised about? I like layouting and writing games together. So sometimes I would be using a font and the font doesn't have like a specific kind of like it doesn't have an apostrophe. And then I need to change to Helvetica to get the apostrophe and then I type in Helvetica and then I'm like, oh I like this. Like I like how disjointed it is. So I feel like when I'm writing stuff, when I'm documenting the idea, the process of documentation is also responding to me and my reaction to those like little mistakes becomes part of the process. So I have a lot of games that a lot of the I didn't visualize the layout, it just ended up that way. So and I like it. And I like that it ended up that way. So I feel like what I'm most surprised about is just the process itself. Like because I feel like because I might be overemphasizing this too much, but a lot of it is getting out of your own way. So when we feel like we need to do everything, that's kind of when we kind of freeze up and not do everything because we feel we're micromanaging everything. And you're like, that's like trying to micromanage a garden. And I'm like, but the garden's like growing with by itself. So you need to flow with it. So there's a kind of like you grab the seed or you grab the tail end and then you kind of flow with it and then it's also talking back to you. And then being able to be like, "Oh my god, I like this conversation." And just like any friend, you're being friendly with the conversation and allowing it to like rise and fall in a way that's natural. It's not like when you're talking to a friend and you're like, "Oh my God, can you hit the third point already? You brought that up a while ago." Right? So I feel like when we're so rude to ourselves in our creative process, it's like, "Oh my God, can you get to the last chapter?" And it's like, you would do that to a friend, and then you're doing it to your process. Come on, it's so like we could be nicer with the whole thing. And it actually just like when you're nice to service workers everything just flows better. So when you're just nice to your process it's just I'm not it's just gonna flow better. So I feel like uh I like, sorry, I really like personifying the process itself even. So there's even a whole like, oh, hi game, let's walk together. The only thing I'm not so good at is that something that Kazumi told me before was that, okay, you walk the baby to pregnancy and it gives birth and then you walk the baby out and then you put it into, I don't know, kindergarten or other playmates. So I'm good with birthing them, but I'm not so good with walking them out. So but so anyway, this whole process that I'm telling is more about like let's give birth to baby or let's like get that cloth out of the snake. But maybe talk to somebody else in terms of like walking it out into the world. But in terms of just giving birth to the game child, I feel like there's just more being friendly with the process rather than feeling like you're lording over it. Yeah.
Yeah, I also really like even though uh, uh, like I guess it's maybe part of like more towards like walking the baby out into the world already, like the way you described
Mhm.
writing down the game as like documenting the
Yeah.
ideas, right? Like
Yeah.
in a way, like trying to pin down something creative that's already happened and like put a version of it out there.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I feel like that's why I'm so impressed with people who the marketing side is also part of their walk of their creative process,
yeah.
like soliciting questions, soliciting ideas, especially when they make bigger games. Because I feel like the reason why I'm not so good at that is because my games tend to be short. So I fail to include other energies because just like a while ago it's like I have the idea, okay, it's done. So it's like so there's no time for stuff to come in. So I feel like other people are quite good at that in terms of like ruminating the game out loud in public to allow more energies to come in. So I feel like that's also pretty cool. I support that, but so okay, the reason why I like saying rhythms, like natural rhythms. So like a firefly has a shorter lifespan, a tree is slower. So I feel like I tend to being able to listen to your own rhythm. So I tend to fast I like fast processes. I like slamming out a game in a day because that's just how I work as a person. So and then I know people who are like very like slow. So I feel like being able to listen into what your process is like makes it easier for you to meet your process, but also collaborate with other people when they have their own process. It's kind of like when you're playing a TTRPG game, you're listening to other people's process as well. So this is very similar, but it's just uh it's not necessarily more creative. It's just a specific kind of creativity because
mhm.
you're writing stories and mechanics and yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Uh, I think we could probably go on for a while longer, but we
Forever.
might, yeah, we might just end this here. I think there's a couple of quick questions. We can
Okay.
keep doing that in the Discord. But
Okay.
yeah, thank
Yeah.
you so much, Maria. That was a really great time. Thank you for taking
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
time out to like share with us. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm also very grateful for the space. It's so fun and cute. Like, feel free to chat anytime. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
See y'all.
Bye.
Bye.